The iron gates of the Kang estate slid open with a low rumble that made Aaliyah Mercer's heart skip. She clutched the strap of her worn handbag and stepped forward, feeling impossibly small before the towering mansion. People in the city whispered about this place, about the silent, dangerous man who ruled from within its marble walls. But Aaliyah needed the job more than she feared the rumors. Madame Wayung, the senior housekeeper, led her inside briskly. "Work hard, speak little and don't wander," she instructed. "The master dislikes unnecessary noise." Aaliyah nodded quickly, her voice soft. "Yes, ma'am." The interior was grand enough to steal breath: chandeliers, shimmering floors, paintings older than her entire family line. She felt out of place but determined. She needed a fresh start. Even if her cheeks still throbbed beneath the small bandage, she prayed no one would notice. As she dusted the entry hall, footsteps approached. Aaliyah straightened and turned, only to freeze. A tall man in a sleek black coat passed slowly through the hall, surrounded by bodyguards. His presence felt heavier than the silence around him. His expression was unreadable, sharp as carved stone. Kang Dae-Hyun. The man people warned her never to look in the eye. Aaliyah bowed instantly. But as she lowered her head, her bandage shifted slightly. Dae-Hyun's steps stopped. The entire hall seemed to hold its breath. His gaze dropped to the side of her face, lingering on the bandage. His eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in something she couldn't identify. Aaliyah felt exposed, like he could see straight through the lies she carried beneath her calm smile. And for the first time since arriving, she wondered if stepping into this house would change her life in ways she wasn't prepared for. For the rest of the day, Aaliyah tried to pretend nothing had happened, that Kang Dae-Hyun hadn't stopped, stared at her bandage and then walked away without saying a single word. But his silence stayed with her, heavy and unsettling. By evening, the mansion buzzed with tension. Staff whispered that the boss had returned from a difficult negotiation. Aaliyah noticed it immediately: the way guards moved sharper, the way Madame Wayung's voice tightened. During dinner service, Aaliyah moved quietly between the long dining table and the kitchen. Dae-Hyun sat at the head of the table, shadows clinging to him like a second coat. He spoke little, eating with calm precision. But every few minutes she felt it, his eyes, watching her. Not aggressively, not accusingly, just watching. When she placed a dish before him, her hand trembled slightly. She lowered her head and again her bandage shifted. This time Dae-Hyun's jaw clenched. Before she could retreat, another voice cut through the room, warm, playful, familiar. "Aaliyah, is that a new hairstyle?" Eun-woo grinned from the opposite end of the table. She laughed nervously, grateful for the distraction. "No, sir. Just the usual." But as she turned to leave, she caught Dae-Hyun's eyes again. Eun-woo noticed too. His smile faded slightly, replaced by quiet curiosity. After dinner, staff hurried to clear the table. Aaliyah was almost out the door when Dae-Hyun's deep voice halted her mid-step. "Aaliyah Mercer, stay." Everyone froze. He rose slowly from his chair, his expression unreadable. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. What did he want? Why her? And why did his voice sound less like a command, and more like concern? Aaliyah stood alone in the massive dining hall, the faint echo of footsteps fading as the staff quickly disappeared. Her palms were damp, and the silence pressed around her like thick fog. Dae-Hyun approached slowly, each step measured and controlled. He stopped a few feet away, close enough for her to feel his presence, but far enough to keep from intimidating her more than she already was. "Lift your head," he said quietly. Aaliyah obeyed, her breath shallow. His eyes moved immediately to the bandage. Up close, it was obvious she had tried to apply it herself. It was crooked, the edges peeling from a day's work. "Who did this?" His voice was low, but there was something underneath, a tightness, a restrained heat. I fell, sir," she whispered. The answer came too fast, too practiced. Dae-Hyun's gaze hardened. "A lie." Aaliyah's throat tightened, but she looked down, determined not to let fear show. Her job meant everything. She couldn't afford trouble, not here, not anywhere. Before she could respond, Eun-woo entered, leaning casually against the doorway. "Hyung, don't scare her on her first week," he said lightly. But Aaliyah noticed the concern in his eyes too. Dae-Hyun didn't look away from her. "I don't tolerate dishonesty in my house." Aaliyah's fingers twisted nervously. "I'm not trying to cause any problem. I just need this job, sir." Eun-woo stepped closer, his tone soft. "Aaliyah, you don't have to hide anything. Not here." Her eyes shimmered, but she blinked fast and shook her head. "It's nothing. Really." Dae-Hyun's jaw ticked, a sign of frustration or worry she couldn't tell. But one thing was clear. He wasn't letting this go. The room felt colder as Dae-Hyun stepped closer. His voice, though calm, carried a sharp edge that made Aaliyah's heart pound. "Aaliyah," he said, his eyes locked on hers, "look at me." Slowly she lifted her gaze. His expression wasn't angry, it was something far more unsettling, controlled fury mixed with unexpected concern. "That isn't from a fall," Dae-Hyun said softly. "So I'll ask again. Who hurt you?" Aaliyah swallowed hard. Her fingers trembled behind her apron, but her voice remained barely above a whisper. "No one, sir. I promise." The lie cracked in the air between them. Eunwoo sighed quietly. "Young," she scared. "Maybe we should." "No," Dae-Hyun's tone was final but not unkind. "Fear doesn't appear without a cause." Aaliyah's eyes glistened. She hated this feeling, being cornered by kindness. Harshness she understood. Accusation she expected. But gentle pressure? That was disarming. "I'm not trying to hide anything," she managed. "I just want to work and stay out of trouble." Dae-Hyun studied her, silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower, almost protective. "In this house you don't need to fear speaking the truth." Her breath hitched, a tiny, fragile sound. Eunwoo stepped closer and offered a reassuring smile. "Hey Aaliyah. We're on your side, okay?" Aaliyah shook her head quickly, stepping back. "Please, just let it go." Dae-Hyun's eyes darkened, not with anger, but with resolve. "Someone put their hands on you," he said quietly. "And whether you tell me or not, I will find out." Aaliyah froze. Because for the first time she believed him. The next morning, Aaliyah slipped into the kitchen before sunrise, hoping to avoid any more questions. She worked quietly, moving like a shadow between the counters. If she stayed busy enough, maybe her thoughts would stop racing. But fate had other plans. While she reached up to put away dishes, her sleeve slid down just enough to reveal a faint, fading bruise along her arm. Madame Wayung, who rarely missed anything, paused mid-step. Her eyes narrowed in concern, not judgment. "Aaliyah," she said gently, "come here a moment." Aaliyah froze, tugging her sleeve back down. "I'm fine, ma'am." "Really?" But before the housekeeper could respond, a familiar presence filled the doorway. Dae-Hyun. He didn't speak at first, he simply stared at her arm, then at her face. His expression darkened like a storm gathering strength. "Show me your arm," he said. Aaliyah shook her head quickly. "No sir, please, it's nothing serious." Eunwoo entered behind him, the usual smile wiped from his face. He approached slowly, like trying not to frighten a wounded animal. "Aaliyah, why didn't you say anything yesterday?" Tears burned her eyes, but she blinked hard. "Because I need this job. Because trouble follows me everywhere. And I don't want it following me here." Dae-Hyun took a step closer, his voice low and steady. "You are not the cause of anyone's trouble." His tone held no judgment, only conviction. Eunwoo gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "We're not here to hurt you. We just want to help." Aaliyah looked away, fighting the lump in her throat. "Please," she whispered, "don't get involved." But Dae-Hyun's expression said it was already too late. He was involved. Aaliyah tried to stay invisible the next few days. She worked quickly, spoke softly, and avoided being alone anywhere Dae-Hyun or Eunwoo might corner her again with questions she wasn't ready to answer. But safety, she learned, was never something she could depend on. One afternoon, Madame Wayung sent her to the nearby market with a short list of supplies. Aaliyah welcomed the fresh air. The open streets felt less suffocating than the mansion's silent corridors. As she compared prices on vegetables, she felt it, that cold sensation crawling up her spine. Someone was watching her. She glanced over her shoulder. A man in a dark jacket stood several meters away, pretending to look at fruit but eyeing her reflection in the vendor's metal counter. His posture was sharp, stiff, too focused. Her heart thudded painfully. She quickened her pace. He followed. Aaliyah slipped into a crowded stall, hoping to lose him. But when she looked back, he was still there, closer now, his gaze locked on her with quiet threat. Her hands shook as she paid for the groceries. She hurried back toward the street, praying she was imagining things. Before the man could take another step toward her, two tall figures emerged from an alley, blocking his path. Dae-Hyun's men. One whispered into his earpiece, never taking his eyes off the suspicious stranger. Aaliyah didn't hear what happened next. She only reached the car they'd brought for her and sank into the back seat, trembling. When she returned to the mansion, Dae-Hyun was already waiting. His expression was unreadable as his lead guard stepped forward. "Boss," he said quietly, Someone was tailing Aaliyah. And he didn't look harmless. Dae-Hyun's eyes lifted slowly to hers, colder and angrier than she had ever seen. The storm was coming. Aaliyah stood frozen in the hallway, her fingers gripping the grocery bag so tightly that the plastic dug into her skin. Dae-Hyun dismissed his guards with a single motion, never breaking eye contact with her. Inside. Now, he said quietly. It wasn't a command of anger, it was a command of protection. She followed him into his private study, a room no one entered without permission. Eun-woo appeared moments later, his expression deeply worried. Dae-Hyun folded his arms. Tell me the truth. All of it. Aaliyah's throat tightened. She had spent months running, hiding, forcing herself to stay silent. But now, cornered by people who weren't trying to control her, just help her, something inside her cracked. I didn't want any of this to follow me here, she whispered. Eun-woo stepped closer. Aaliyah, who is he? Her voice trembled. My mother remarried years ago. Her husband, he was never kind. When I became old enough to leave, I tried. He didn't like that. She swallowed hard, blinking rapidly. He blamed me for everything. Said I owed him. When I escaped, he said he would find me. And he did. Over and over. Eun-woo's jaw tightened in disbelief. He chased you across cities? Aaliyah nodded. I thought if I worked quietly here, he would give up. I didn't want trouble. I just wanted peace. Dae-Hyun's expression darkened like thunder rolling across a silent sky. He hurt you? He asked quietly. Aaliyah didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her silence told him everything. Dae-Hyun's next words were soft, but carried a power that silenced the room. You're under my protection now. Aaliyah's breath hitched. And Eun-woo exhaled in relief. For the first time, she wasn't alone. Dae-Hyun didn't speak again for several seconds. He simply stood there, fists clenched at his sides, breathing slowly as if holding back a storm. Aaliyah watched him carefully, unsure if he was angry at her, or for her. Finally he turned to Eun-woo. Find out everything about the man following her, he ordered. Quietly. No confrontation unless necessary. Eun-woo nodded instantly. The playful glint he usually carried was gone. In its place was sharp, calculated seriousness. Consider it done. Aaliyah shook her head, panic rising. Please, don't chase him. I don't want any violence. Dae-Hyun stepped closer, his voice steady. I'm not chasing him. I'm securing you. But you are not in danger because of us, he said firmly. He is the danger. That ends now. His certainty rattled her more than her fear. No one had ever spoken on her behalf with so much conviction. For the next few days, Dae-Hyun's mansion changed quietly. Guards rotated closer to the entrances. Eun-woo shadowed Aaliyah whenever she left a room. Even Madame Hwa-young watched her with a motherly protectiveness. Aaliyah hated feeling like a burden, but she also felt safe for the first time in years. On the third night, Dae-Hyun summoned her to the garden. Lanterns glowed softly, lighting his silhouette. My men found him, he said. Her breath caught. He has a history of intimidation, Dae-Hyun continued, but nothing beyond the reach of legal action. Aaliyah blinked. Legal action? Yes, Dae-Hyun said. I don't solve everything with violence. Despite what people assume. She lowered her gaze, touched by his restraint. I've arranged protection for your mother as well, he added. Her eyes instantly filled with tears. You didn't have to. I did, he said. Because no one should live in fear. Not in my house. And not in your life. For the first time. Aaliyah let herself believe him. The atmosphere in the Kang mansion gradually changed. Subtly at first, then unmistakably. Aaliyah no longer walked with her shoulders tight or her eyes lowered. The guards greeted her with respectful nods. Madame Hwa-young fussed over her meals. And Eun-woo, ever the sunlight in a serious household, made it his mission to make her smile at least once a day. But the greatest change came from the person she least expected. Kang Dae-Hyun. The feared boss who once dined alone in a soundless private room, began showing up in the kitchen. At first, Aaliyah thought it was coincidence, just poor timing. But after the third day, when Dae-Hyun quietly took a seat at the small wooden table where she folded napkins, she realized it wasn't. You don't need to stand when I'm here, he said when she froze mid-movement. I wasn't sure, she murmured. His gaze softened. You're safe here, Aaliyah. That includes being yourself. Those words settled warmly in her chest. Eun-woo often walked in on them, raising a playful eyebrow. Hyung, since when do you choose the kitchen over the executive dining hall? Dae-Hyun ignored him completely, which only made Eun-woo grin harder. Aaliyah, however, found her heart reacting in ways she didn't understand. It wasn't romance, not yet. It was something gentler, trust forming in the quiet spaces between their conversations. Late one evening, as Aaliyah brewed tea, Dae-Hyun spoke without looking up from a file. "You don't have to thank me every time, you know?" She paused. "For what?" "For making sure you're protected." Her smile was small but real. "Maybe I want to." For the first time he allowed the faintest curve at the corner of his lips. Little by little, the walls around both of them were beginning to fall. Whispers filled the Kang mansion long before Aaliyah heard them. "The boss smiles now. He actually talks during meals. Did you see him walk Aaliyah to the door?" The staff had never seen anything like it. Kang Dae-Hyun, the man known for his icy silence, had changed. And everyone knew why. Aaliyah. Her presence softened the edges of the house. Rooms once cold now felt lived in. Even Eun-woo seemed lighter, relieved that his brother finally had someone, that brought warmth to his life. One morning, Dae-Hyun requested Aaliyah meet him in his office. Her heart raced. The office was reserved for serious matters. When she entered, he stood near the window, sunlight tracing the sharp lines of his face. He turned, expression calm but unreadable. "You've been working beyond your duties," he began. "And you've shown loyalty even when you were afraid." Aaliyah lowered her head shyly. "I'm just doing my best, sir." He stepped closer, his voice softer than she had ever heard it. "I want you to stay here. Not as a maid." Her eyes widened. "But as my personal assistant. A role with higher pay, your own secure room, and no duties that put you in harm's way." Aaliyah's breath caught. "Dae-Hyun, I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Eun-woo called from the doorway, grinning. "Because we're not letting you go anywhere." She laughed through the tears forming in her eyes. "Then, yes." Dae-Hyun nodded once, but there was quiet relief in his gaze, relief he didn't bother hiding. And when news arrived that her mother was safely relocated and legally protected, Aaliyah finally felt the weight lift from her shoulders. She came into the Kang house running from fear. But she stayed because she found something she never expected. A home, and people who truly cared.